Funding for Schaefer Illis is provided by
SeatGeek, the sponsor of today's video. Hey guys, I don't know if you could tell, but I've kind of been on the biggest Wicked kick of my entire life since the movie came out. And that's especially crazy, because like I said in my original review, I never really liked Wicked that much. I thought it was pretty good with some phenomenal songs, but overall it was not a musical I ever really thought about that much. But the power of having such an unexpectedly good adaptation in the movie version of Act 1 of Wicked really propelled me into a full-blown obsession with this show and its songs. I've been listening to them non-stop for the past few months. But here's the weird thing. I kind of only got into the original Broadway cast recording instead of the soundtrack from the movie that inspired this obsession. Why? Well, I kind of just felt like even though the songs worked in the context of the movie, they aren't quite as compelling to listen to in audio-only form, since Broadway cast recordings are designed for that way more. They get rid of unnecessary dialogue or bits of score, and mostly get right to the point. Plus, since the Wicked movie was recorded live on set, its soundtrack maybe felt like a bit of an afterthought compared to the explicitly studio-recorded original Broadway cast recording. I don't know, for a lot of reasons, I just figured the Broadway version was the best one to jam out to. But then I started thinking about some of the little riffs and perfect harmonies Ariana and Cynthia added to the songs, and it got me wondering, hey, why don't I give that movie soundtrack a try? So I did and really enjoyed it. But obviously, that got me thinking even deeper. I love both versions of most of these songs, but which version do I love more for each individual one? And then I realized this was a nice topical way to make a musical theater related video that people will actually watch. And I immediately jumped on the chance to make it. It's time to compare each and every song in Act 1 of Wicked between the original Broadway cast recording and the movie soundtrack. Oh yeah, I'm probably gonna call the Broadway cast recording a soundtrack a lot in this video just for the sake of simplicity. So if that makes you upset, just get over it, you know what I mean. Now, some ground rules. I'm not gonna be considering any of the visuals of the Broadway show or the movie when judging these songs. Nor will I consider any of the dialogue bits that break up the songs exclusively in the movie. We're only gonna judge them based on what's in the soundtrack versions and how well those flow. On top of how good the vocals are, the acting that comes across from said vocals, the instrumentation, the tempo, etc. Pretty much, I'm gonna go over each and every song with a fine-tooth comb and tell you probably more detail you've ever wanted to hear about all of them, comparing each and every vocal performance, a ton of the line deliveries and differences between them, and any other miscellaneous minutia I can find. Please note that I don't want this to come across as a diss to anyone in either version. Pretty much everyone involved in both productions is insanely talented, and just because I say one of them does a better job in some specific instances than the other, that doesn't mean I dislike their counterparts' performance. In particular, I really want to stress to any Ariana stans watching this, she did a phenomenal job, and if I say Kristen did better in some very specific instances and line deliveries, please do not get upset with me. Also, I hope you don't get too mad at my takes in general, because once again, they are not gospel. And you might have completely opposite opinions on which version of each song and each performer is better. Please, by all means, feel free to make your own video comparing the two versions if you want to get your own takes across. Anyway, that's about it. We've got 11 different songs to look forward to, and I'll be keeping score of how many points each version gets along the way. We're in for a long one today, folks, so let's get this whole shebang started with the opening song. Right off the bat, I love how even though both versions are playing the same song, the musical one just sounds theatrical. Like hearing it makes me feel like I'm in a theater waiting for the curtain to open and the show to begin. But the movie version just sounds like it belongs in a film. I can't fully describe why, but I think it's the differing instrument choices they make that result in each overture sounding uniquely better suited to their respective medium. With that said, due to the obvious distinctions between the two, there's gotta be one I prefer, right? And it's gonna have to be the Broadway version. They're a lot more pleasing on the ears, whereas the movie version sounds a little too intense. It works there, but it's not super fun to listen to just within the soundtrack. So the musical version of this song has an early advantage, but there's still a lot of song to cover and the movie can turn it around. And in fact, once we get to the unlimited part of the overture, the movie does something that I like better than the original and adds a little choir to it. that's pretty gorgeous. It makes it feel a lot grander in general. These have all been little differences so far, but now we come to one of the most major ones in the entirety of Wicked. After the unlimited bit, the musical suddenly transitions into harsh, intense instruments sounding completely discordant and leading up to the big "good news, she's dead" bit. The movie goes in the complete opposite direction and sounds more hopeful and optimistic at this point, musically playing the death of the Wicked Witch of the West completely straight. I think that's an interesting change, because it tries to put you in the perspective of the citizens of Oz. Like, this is a completely happy moment for them, so the music sounds completely happy, and not ravenously vicious like the original. I do admire and appreciate the intent there, but I think I do prefer the Broadway version in this instance. It's got such a unique sound to it, and I like how it immediately tells you that something's off about this. The new version has its merits creatively, but I like this bit in the old version a lot better. I also like the person who screams, "Look, it's Glinda!" better than the movie version, who comparatively says it a lot more normally. Now we come to our first lead performance to compare. Kristin Chenoweth in the Broadway version versus Ariana Grande in the movie. Once again, I really have to stress that I think both of them were phenomenal, and in particular, I have very little bad to say about Ariana's performance. I really do not want the Ariana stans to come at me for saying that Kristin makes some choices that I slightly prefer in some very specific instances. Please know that I'm not trying to diss either of them because they are both unbelievably incredible in their own rights in this part. The same applies to Idina and Cynthia as well, obviously, but I don't think Cynthia stans are gonna come at me nearly as much. Anyway, I know I said I was gonna compare them, but in this opening part, they're pretty similar, without it feeling like Ariana is doing an impression of Kristin either. They both just sound like the embodiment of goodness and majesty in their own unique voices, and I especially love what a far cry their voices are in this song compared to the rest of the show, where they sound a lot goofier and less mature. But yeah, I am really trying to pick out a performance I like better for this song between them, but I don't know, man, they both nail it. There is one thing though that might put Kristin's version a little bit over the top, and this isn't really Ariana's fault. It more so just has to do with the fact that they recorded live and not in a studio, but they left in her gasps for breath between the lines she sings, and the version without gasps in between does sound a little bit better to me. I don't think it would have been too hard to cut those out. Okay, moving on to the townspeople. The musical version gets some props for the person who sings, "No one cries, they won't return." They just hit that cries really well with a great growl, whereas the movie person just kind of delivers it normally. I also really like the Broadway person who sings, "The good man scorns the wicked." They really sound like a zealot trying to cast shame on someone else. Okay, I don't want the movie to feel left out though, so here's the first of many riffs Ariana does that makes her version of this part sound a lot better to me. This bit on "The Wicked's lives are lonely" sounds incredible and really makes the line stick out compared to Kristin singing it pretty normally. The wicked's lives are lonely. The wicked's lives are lonely. I say pretty normally because it's still very pretty, but also normal by comparison. I also like how Ariana delivers "when you're wicked, you're left only on your own" a little bit better. You get a twinge of remorse from that delivery. In general, I really love how Ariana plays to the ending of the show a lot better than Kristin in this song. You can see it a lot more in her face during the actual movie, but it comes across in some line deliveries here in the soundtrack as well. I also like how the movie soundtrack includes the little girl asking Glinda why wickedness happens. It makes for a better transition when you're listening to the song without visuals, and it doesn't take up too much time either, which is nice. Oh my god, I'm only halfway through the damn song and I've already hit 1,000 words. This was such a mistake. Anyway, on to the flashback part. I like the singing from Elphaba's father in the Broadway version a lot better than the movie here. It's a bit part that doesn't matter that much, but the musical version just has a stronger singer here. Now we get to the wizards bit, and I've always been a little mixed on Jeff Goldblum in this role. Like, I love him in so many movies, but this feels a little stunt casting-y when the rest of the cast is so damn good and fitting since they actually got people with a proven track record of being able to sing. Well, okay, Michelle Yeoh is a little stunt casting-y as well, but Madame Morrible's singing bits aren't really as notable as the wizards. To be fair, you can get away with a wizard who isn't a great singer. In fact, that kind of fits the character now that I think about it. I think overall, Jeff Goldblum was decent in this role, with this bit here being not great vocally, but I think it served its purpose of showing off the wizard's natural charisma and why Elphaba's mother would have an affair with him. With that said, Joel Grey as the wizard has the sleazy charisma down, while also being a much better singer. There's something really sinister about his voice buried deep down, and I buy his nefarious machinations a little bit more. So I'll give the musical version the edge for the wizard's bit here. But again, I don't think Goldblum was bad. He sold the character, and specifically this part, enough. Moving along, I think the baby's coming part is a little better in the Broadway version musically, because it just feels more in rhythm. Though, I have to admit, listening to this bit, I'm really sorry I dissed the guy in the movie who plays Elphaba's father, because he actually nails what does it mean, and it's obscene. Way more than the Broadway version. I am so sorry for disrespecting you, Andy Nyman. Damn, this guy played Tevye on the West End? Well, now I'm really sorry. I was unfamiliar with your game. In the movie, they also changed the nurse saying it's atrocious to it's uncanny, as a way of showing that Elphaba's animal nurse is a little bit more accepting of her greenness than everyone else. That's a pretty nice touch. And Andy Nyman even screams, "Take it away," which feels much more despicable than the Broadway version. Guys, I think I have to stan Andy Nyman. I'm sorry I implied that he was the weaker singer between the two. I mean, the Broadway guy is still good, but Andy Nyman, you may be the superior Governor Throp. Congratulations. The Goodness Knows choruses are pretty similar in quality, and the Kristen and Ariana high notes are both equally gorgeous. When it comes to the "she died alone" part, I have to admit, musically, I slightly prefer the more simple way Kristen delivers it. It feels a lot more definitive with how much quicker she gets it done. But Ariana's version has something so damn cool that is worth mentioning. She sings "She Died Alone" in the exact same interval as Idina's ending riff in Defying Gravity. I hope I said that right, because I'm not a music theory expert, but like, you know what I mean. This is such an awesome touch. Musically, I do prefer the simplicity of Kristen's version, but I really had to highlight what a cool change that was. The ending parts are mostly the same in terms of quality, but then at the last minute, Ariana hits you with the most insane damn high note in the entirety of either of these soundtracks, maybe. It's so incredible. So looking at these back to back, this is actually a really close matchup. Kristen and Ariana are basically neck and neck, with slight advantages and disadvantages over the other. The townspeople and the wizard are better in the Broadway version, but a lot of the slack is picked up for the movie by my guy, Andy Nyman. Woo! Ultimately, I think the tiebreaker for this first round has to come down to the instrumental bits towards the beginning. And in the end, I'm just gonna remember the bombastic and discordant sound of the Broadway version a lot more than the comparatively pleasant sound of the movie version. Just ever so barely, I'm gonna have to give this first round to the Broadway soundtrack. But there's many more rounds to come for the movie version to stage a comeback. Everyone's all like, "Oh, A Sentimental Man is the most forgettable song in Wicked. Oh, Something Bad is the most forgettable song." Dog, I dare you to remember that Dear Old Shiz exists. Like, come on, this one is nothing. Just a pretty boring school anthem meant to transition us into the before times, where the bulk of the story takes place. Ah well, there are changes, so let's talk about them. The movie makes 3 I really like right at the beginning. First, the person who asks Glinda if the witch was her friend is changed from an aggressive-sounding man to a young woman, which is nice because it sounds like a more genuine question and not accusatory. I also really like how, where Kristen says, "It depends," Ariana says, "Yes." Glinda is owning their friendship. It just feels more meaningful. And on top of that, you can hear the "For Good" leitmotif in the background. That's a beautiful addition. As for the song itself, the musical soundtrack takes a little bit longer to build up to it, which isn't really necessary, and I like how the movie soundtrack gets right to it. The movie version in general is a little faster, which is fine by me since the song is pretty boring and unsubstantial, so no need to drag it out. But the thing that really puts this one over the top is the little vocal flourishes Ariana gives at the very end. They sound so damn good. Yeah, I think this is an upgrade over the original in basically every respect. That's 1 point to the movie version. Alright, before we get to our first real Adina-Cynthia comparison, we gotta compare the Memorable bits. And, look, I love Michelle Yeoh, but I think she was kind of the worst performer in the movie somehow. She just felt very checked out the entire time, and it seemed very unlike her to give a performance so unmemorable. This extends to the singing as well. She sounds a little uncomfortable in her short singing bit in this song, whereas Carol Shelley adds so many vocal flourishes, befitting a dignified and kinda snooty character. You could argue Michelle is making a conscious effort to sound more compassionate and friendly to Elphaba in order to further her manipulation. But even if that's the case, I think the enthusiasm Carol expresses is a better manipulation tactic to get Elphaba excited to serve the wizard. That's on top of her version just sounding better vocally. But who really cares about that? We're here for Elphaba. And both Adina and Cynthia give fantastic performances in their own respective right. I think they both have clear advantages over the other in key areas. For instance, Adina just sounds a lot more starry-eyed in the way she delivers these lyrics. Cynthia sounds amazing, but a little more mature and subdued, whereas I feel like Adina really sells the I wantiness of this I Want song. There's a youthful punchiness to how she sings, "Do you think the wizard is dumb?" And I also like her delivery of "since birth," which Cynthia kinda throws away a little bit. Like, I don't know why she sounds out of breath when she sings that part.
Since birth. Since birth.
I also think the instrumentals after the first The Wizard and I are better in the Broadway version because they're more subtle. The movie version gets a little too grand sounding, a little too fast. Back to the vocals, I really love the way Adina delivers the "of course that's not important to me, alright, why not, I'll reply." Cynthia underplays it, which does work, but I like the way Adina clearly displays her enthusiasm, even if she's trying to suppress it. Of course, the second half of the song is where I think Cynthia starts to kinda win me over, compared to Adina. Obviously Adina still sounds great, but here Cynthia really gets to flex with some awesome vocal flourishes added to various words. I'm sure some people probably don't like these and think they're unnecessary, but I think they sound amazing and convey unbridled excitement very well. In particular, the way Cynthia sings "team" at the end is a lot more exciting to me. Same goes for that last "I" at the end. It really feels like Adina lays an amazing foundation that Cynthia can build off of with phenomenal vocal flexes. And much like the song The Wizard and I, me saying that just now is foreshadowing. Overall, both versions are pretty even in my mind. Adina nails the first half more, but Cynthia really comes in clutch in the second half. I think overall though, the starry-eyed acting in Adina's version does win me over a little bit more. Plus, if this really had to come down to a tiebreaker, I'm sorry, Memorable is a lot better in the original. This point goes to the Broadway version. What Is This Feeling is the fun first duet between Glinda and Elphaba about them fucking hating each other. And this is another song where it's really close. The thing is, songs that are primarily Kristen versus Ariana, Adina versus Cynthia, or a 2v2 with all four of them involved, are really damn similar in terms of quality. These are four actresses at the absolute top of their game in terms of vocal ability. Like, if you asked me to name the weakest vocalist of the four, I would just say shoot me. I can't do it. But with that said, they all make individual choices in terms of specific deliveries that can be compared, on top of changes in the background music and the choruses present in this particular song. So let's look at those. For starters, I really like the compassion in Cynthia's voice when she sings "I'll care for Nessa." Adina sounds a little more dismissive of Nessa, which, yeah, I mean, to be fair, Nessa isn't exactly a great sister. But I like the idea of Elphaba still feeling a little protective of her regardless. Plus, Adina kinda pronounces her name like NASA. I don't know, pronounce it right, damn it.
But of course I'll care for Nessa.
Kind of a hypocrite for saying that because I started out this video pronouncing her name Idina. Whoops. I also like the dejected yes Ariana and Cynthia do in unison, as well as Cynthia's delivery on blonde. Sometimes showing less emotion makes the joke land way better, such is the case here with the movie version.
Blonde.
Adina and Cynthia both have great unique deliveries of "I laid eyes on you." I don't really have a preference between the two there, but I like how different they are and how much personality they both show. And there's a great addition to the movie where after Cynthia says "my head is reeling," instead of just saying "my face is flushing," Ariana says "yeah, well, my face is flushing," as if she's trying to one-up her. That's so good and so in character. After that, there's a more discordant sounding instrumental bit in the movie version, and that's a nice touch as well. Okay, I said this was a really close matchup, but the movie is getting a lot of the praise here. Oops. That's that's not to say the Broadway version of this song is bad by comparison. On the contrary, they nail the emotion and the chemistry between the two leads. It sounds really good, really funny, really petty, everything you want this song to be. But the movie version just builds off of that, nailing everything that made the original great, while adding funny little bits of its own. But to the musical's credit, I think in general the background instrumentals just sound a little bit peppier, which makes it a little bit more fun to listen to for a while there. The first major vocal difference though comes in with the chorus, which sounds a lot more fake nice in the movie, if that makes sense. I think the acting is just a little bit stronger from them, and they sound more enjoyably obnoxious compared to the pretty flat sound of the chorus in the original. From here on out, the song continues the trend of the musical version sounding great, but the movie version sounding ever so slightly better. Like, Ariana and Cynthia's "Oh, what is this feeling" is tremendous. The main advantage the two of them have over Kristen and Adina is that their voices blend insanely well. Like, ridiculously so. That's not to say Kristen and Adina's don't, but like, that specific combination of Ariana and Cynthia is so perfect. And this is the first time in the show we get to hear it in action. It really gives me a strange exhilaration during the last bit of the song. I liked the peppiness of the Broadway version a tiny bit better during the first 2/3 of the song, but this last third is a comparative home run in the movie's favor. It just sounds heavenly without sacrificing the bitter edge these two are supposed to be feeling towards each other. Ariana and Cynthia also have what might be another Defying Gravity riff reference during Loathing You. I can't tell if it's exactly it, but even if not, yeah, I like this bit better than the original too. And as a nice cherry on top of everything, Cynthia even gets to do her own version of the Wicked Witch's cackle when she scares Glinda at the end, which isn't there in the original. Another nice touch. I know I said at the beginning that this was kind of a close race, but in hindsight, nah, the movie's got hands. There's way too much in its favor, so this is an easy victory for the film, meaning we are officially tied up once again at 2-2. Something bad? More like something bad? Got 'em! I don't know why everyone disses the Wizard songs. I like them. And I think it's especially unfair because this song is 100 times more boring and worse. Like, I think this might be the worst song in the entirety of Wicked, both acts 1 and 2. I don't like March of the Witch Hunters, but at least some parts of it go hard. No part of Something Bad goes hard. It's such a nothing song. You could have given Dr. Dillerman something good, but instead, you gave him something fucking terrible. Okay, whatever. Enough harping on the song itself. Who does it better? I'm not even gonna go beat by beat. I'm just gonna tell you the answer. It's the movie. Within the actual story, it's a lot cooler since it's at an underground animal rebel meeting and not just in the classroom. But if we're talking solely soundtrack-wise, it's also a lot better because there's multiple people singing in the chorus, which makes it sound nicer. I also like how the movie version of Dillerman says he must be catching a cold after making a goat noise. Like, yeah, sure, totally. Bro thinks he's a saintly Victorian orphan. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really lame song in both versions, but the movie is slightly less lame. Point goes to the movie, even though this should only count for like a quarter point realistically. Oh boy, this is gonna be another long one, folks. We gotta compare not just Fiyero, but Glinda bits, parts with the chorus, the only time they let Bach and Nessa sing in the entirety of Act 1. Let's just jump on in and try and get through this as quickly as we can. I think I'm a little more of a Norbert Leo Butz enjoyer in this role, but I don't want to discount the amazing job Jonathan Bailey did. I just like Norbert's voice a little bit more. Jonathan delivers a lot of the opening lyrics more conversationally instead of outright singing them, which certainly works, but I do prefer Norbert's vocals in this opening, with the exception of Jonathan adding a flair-filled high note to "But I say, why invite stress in?" That was a nice touch. After they both hold the life note, I definitely prefer the musical's far more prominent instrumentation, as well as Norbert's delivery of "knowing nothing matters." After that, they add a crowd rhythmically swooning over Fiyero to the movie version, which I think is a nice addition. It reminds you that he's not just singing this to the void. This is where his version also starts to get a little faster than the original, and I think that's a solid change. It gives the song a little more energy. They use that time to have a more invigorating instrumental bit that complements the dancing added here in the movie. And you know what? That's totally fair. The movie version in general just feels like a much dancier song than the original, due to its more upbeat instrumentals. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it better, but I do appreciate that it has a unique vibe compared to the more suave and subdued original. To be honest, I just really like them both. That same sentiment applies to the "if only because dust is what we come to" parts. I love the way Norbert builds up to that last two, but I also love the way Jonathan goes ham right from the word what. Both fantastic in their own way.
What we come to, what we come to.
The movie version adds an extra "it's just life" for Jonathan to sing. Not anything life-changing or essential, but a decent little touch. And then we finally slow down for Bach and Glinda's encounter. Now, I really like Ethan Slater in this role. He's probably going to hell for that whole affair with Ariana's situation, but we're not here to discuss that today. He is very well cast as Bach, and I like the comedic timing on "I'll be there, waiting, all night." He definitely leaves more of an impression on me than Christopher Fitzgerald does through the character's limited time in the soundtrack. Kristen and Ariana's bits manipulating Bach are both good, though I think I slightly prefer the personality Kristen brings to it. I also slightly prefer the way Norbert says, "You're perfect." It feels a lot more like a response to someone else calling him perfect, since he emphasizes the "you're." But to be fair, the way Jonathan Bailey says it is really damn sexy. After that, we get Nessa's part. I feel like the movie soundtrack adds a little too much dialogue that you don't need. The musical comparatively gets right to the point, unless you hear more of the singing quicker. So that's a point in its favor. I also feel like while Michelle Federer as Broadway Nessa can hold her own vocally and acting-wise, as well as the rest of the cast, Marissa Bode unfortunately might be the weakest singer in the movie cast, with the obvious exceptions of Michelle Yeoh and Jeff Goldblum. I feel bad for saying that, since it is nice that they got an actual wheelchair user to play Nessa for the first time. And it also can't have been easy to find a black wheelchair user who can sing on the same level as the rest of this cast. I don't think she's bad at all. She's a perfectly decent singer and actress. You can clearly hear her enthusiasm for her date with Bach in her voice, which is nice. But just going off of their voices, I do think Michelle Federer is better in both the acting and singing departments. Also, I found out while researching the Broadway cast that she actually ended up marrying Norbert Leo Butz after they met doing Wicked together, which is really sweet. That's like the good ending of the Ariana and Ethan situation. Anyway, I slightly prefer the perkiness of Kristen when she gives Glinda the hat. Not much more to say. Same goes for the instrumentals that follow. I don't really have a preference between them. And then we finally get to Bach and Nessa's big moment together. Once again, I prefer Ethan Slater because you can hear the vulnerability in his voice a lot more when he tries to confess his not love to Nessa. This part also has a pretty major lyrical change, with huge implications for the entire show. In the Broadway version, Bach sings, "Now I know it isn't fair." But in the movie version, he sings, "And I know it isn't fair." Well, I know you're on the edge of your seat, desperately wondering which of these significant lyrical differences I prefer. And the answer is, I don't know, now, I guess. So that significantly shifts the song back in the Broadway version's favor. Anyway, back to being serious. The Nessa bit focuses more on pretty singing in the Broadway version, while being a more down-to-earth, conversational character moment in the movie. In the former, Nessa sings, "Well, isn't that right?" and Bach gives a pretty overblown, "No" reaction.
No, it's because...
This works, but I do appreciate the tenderness in Marissa sheepishly asking, "Isn't that right?" and Ethan compassionately trying to assure her that he actually does love her.
Isn't that right?
No.
It gives "Because You Are So Beautiful" a lot more impact that way. And even though Michelle does sing prettier, the character still does come out in Marissa's version, and I think it's pretty emotionally impactful. Musically, I think I would rather listen to the Broadway version in this moment, but story and character-wise, I prefer it in the movie. After this moment is done, there's 20 seconds left in the Broadway version, and a full minute and 15 seconds left in the movie version? Yeah, I guess they do add a brand new instrumental part, and it's pretty swinging and nice to listen to. Plus the ending dancing through bit is a little punchier in the movie. But at the same time, I feel like one thing I don't like as much with the movie soundtrack in general sometimes is how much longer they make the songs for not much benefit. Dancing Through Life is 7 minutes and 37 seconds in the musical, but 9 minutes and 47 seconds in the movie, with a lot of that coming from added dialogue that doesn't feel necessary, and new instrumental bits that are good, yes, but still contribute to the song's bloat when I really just want to move on to the next one at this point. The point of a soundtrack version is that I don't have to hear all the dialogue in between the singing bits, and I think there's just too much of that in the movie version here. If we're solely comparing just the singing though, it's a close race with both versions being fantastic. And while I prefer Ethan Slater as Bach, the main star of the song is Fiyero, and I absolutely prefer Norbert Leo Butz' take on the character. Both versions are good, but that's my personal preference. So I'm giving this one to the Broadway version. Alright, let's take a break from the contest now. I'm gonna go see the Emerald City Players live in concert, baby! It's always great to get out of the house and take a break from painstakingly adding my 5th copyright protection attempt to a video. I wanna have some fun and treat myself, which is why I wanna give the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app with over 28 million downloads. That's right, more people downloaded SeatGeek than the entire population of Estonia. I don't know why that's relevant, I just thought it was a cool fun fact. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Right now you can get tickets to Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar, Shakira, Justin Timberlake, Sabrina Carpenter, and more. Me personally, I love using SeatGeek to snag some Broadway tickets, and I'll probably get on that with Tony season right around the corner. Each ticket you see is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know if you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And you know I came through for you guys. You can use code RILLIS10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off tickets with promo code RILLIS10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Popular is another pretty close one, with both versions being definite bangers, though they do have their fair share of differences in tone. Kristen sounds a bit more high-pitched and girly, which is a great fit for this song, though Ariana's comparatively deeper and richer interpretation is no slouch either. It still sounds great. I honestly don't really have much specific to say about the first minute. They both stick to their own interpretations and do a really good job nailing the line deliveries. I like the way Ariana rolls her R's on really counts, but I also like the sheer enthusiasm in Kristen's voice during the shoes to wear bit. I'm telling you, these two are at the top of their game. They're neck and neck in this. One pretty moderately sized change I really do enjoy is Ariana dragging out "awfully long way to go." That really sells the line and adds a lot of character without derailing it musically. But Kristen is obviously no slouch in the character department either. She sings the frank analysis part a little more simple and shrill compared to Ariana.
By my frank analysis, by my frank analysis.
But I like that. It still sounds great, and I feel like this is definitely one of those songs where prioritizing character a bit more than singing pretty is justified. I definitely prefer the way Kristen sings "I know about popular," because the emphasis on "know" really stresses the great pride she takes in this knowledge, compared to Ariana's more normal delivery of the line. But then Ariana comes back with a 1-2 punch of going higher on the "who you were" line, and also delivering, well, are, even funnier than Kristen did.
Who you were, well, are. Who you were, well, are.
I also think I prefer Ariana's la-las. I know I just said this song is one where it's okay to have more character instead of sounding prettier, but I think the la's are an exception. For those bits, the prettier the better. But Kristen's "we're gonna make you popular" immediately after is better, channeling the giddiness of the character more. I also enjoy her "did they have brains or knowledge, don't make me laugh" a little bit more. But then the movie swoops in with an awesome, completely new touch. Instead of Glinda saying "they were popular," Elphaba chimes in and says that, prompting Glinda to say "right." That is such a smart addition, reminding you that Glinda is singing this whole song to Elphaba, and it makes for a really cute interaction between the two of them. While we're on the subject, none of this is factoring into the video because it's all visual stuff, but oh my god, the parts where Ariana was pretending to swim on her floorboard, and also when she did the little split that Elphaba tried to imitate, those were both so damn good. And returning to the stuff that actually contributes to her score, her "very shrewd to be" just sounds heavenly. Oh, and where Kristen just does a little "ah," Ariana does a full-ass squeal. And then she adds extra la-las to the ending bit that fit in perfectly without taking up too much time, and they sound sound gorgeous, and yeah, sorry guys, I lied. This really wasn't a contest, honestly. The thing is, Ariana and Cynthia have the advantage of being able to perfectly meet Kristen and Adina at their levels vocally. But on top of that, they have the benefit of taking those original foundations and building on them with their own amazing touches. This puts the movie at a bit of an inherent advantage, honestly, which is not something you can say about most movie musical soundtracks, believe you me. But yeah, with all due respects to Kristen's phenomenal original version, I think the little garnishes Ariana puts on top of this song just enhance it even further. Point to the movie version. I'm Not That Girl doesn't have any lyrical changes or additions in the movie, and yet that version is a minute longer. You know me, I just complained about Dancing Through Life being a little too long in the movie compared to the Broadway version. But here's the crazy thing. I think it works in the movie's favor here. I'm not really the biggest fan of this song. It's always been a little bit boring to me. But for some reason, I got emotionally invested in the movie version. And I think that comes down to how they slow it down and make it feel a lot more genuine and emotionally compelling. There's a weight to the lyrics as Cynthia sings them slowly and carefully, and you really get wrapped up in the character's emotional pain. She also adds some nice vocal riffs, like on one of the "He Could Be That Boy" parts, and they don't sound show-offy or out of place. They really fit. I honestly don't really feel like doing a full play-by-play of each lyric next to each other for this one, because they all basically boil down to the slower tempo of the movie and Cynthia's comparatively more delicate delivery, enriching the meaning of the song. It feels like a simple, unrequited crush in the Broadway version, whereas in the movie, it comes across more as a devastating meditation of a life Elphaba has been denied from living for as long as she can remember. Also, this is unrelated to the comparison, but my girlfriend pointed out, why is the lyric, "and heaven knows I'm not that girl," instead of, "and goodness knows"? Steven, my guy, there was a perfect parallel right on the table there. Why didn't you take it? Oh well, like I said, this was a pretty easy decision. Adina does a good job and all with what she's given, but the tempo of the movie version alone was enough for it to have this one in the bag. I actually felt something listening to this song in the movie. Incredible! The first thing to note when comparing both versions of One Short Day is that one of these days is significantly shorter than the other. The Broadway version is 3 minutes and 5 seconds, while the movie version is 6 minutes and 32 seconds? What the hell did they add to make it over twice as long? Well, there's the obvious thing, but before we get to that, the opening build-up to the song in the movie version takes 1 minute and 15 seconds to get started, whereas in the Broadway soundtrack, it only takes 26 seconds. Yeah, I think I prefer the Broadway version in this department. I don't need almost a minute and a half of slow build-up to get to the actual song I know and love. Like, it definitely worked in the movie because of all the space they needed to fill, but just listening to it on its own, it's not really musically compelling. But now let's focus on the actual song itself here. The opening choruses sound pretty similar. Maybe the movie version is a little bit higher pitched, but otherwise not too much different. In terms of the leads, as usual, they're both great in both versions. I like how Kristen and Ariana both put their own spin on being uniquely excited by the palaces. They go for different things, but both feel very in character.
Palaces! Palaces!
After that, I like the little fanfare they added to the movie version. And while Adina's enthusiasm at "It's All Green" is really good, I definitely prefer how Cynthia delivers it. It feels like she's way more in awe of a place that's celebrating her color.
And it's all green! And it's all green!
Though I do want to point out that Adina puts a little bit more emphasis on the words "for good," while Cynthia doesn't. And I mean, like, I am definitely in favor of putting more emphasis on the words "for good." You gotta love that foreshadowing. Cynthia does recover though, with a nice vocal flourish during Wonder and Enjoy. And after that, the versions are pretty similar in quality until we get to the big change. The lore added to the extended Wizomania bit, while also serving as a way to give wonderful cameos to Kristen and Adina. My girlfriend's headcanon is that the actress character Adina plays in the movie is named Adele Dazeem. Anyway, yeah, seeing this on the big screen warms my heart so much. You guys have no idea. But how do I feel about it within the context of the soundtrack? I don't know. It definitely worked in the movie, adding some solid context to the story and the grimoire and everything. But just within the soundtrack, it feels a little out of place. I think it's the tempo. It's just much slower than the rest of the song, and I don't like what it does to the overall vibe. One short day should be short. It should be flying by really fast, because that's the point. They're having an amazing day that's going by so quickly with so much happening at once. Slowing down for this long doesn't make for as compelling of a listen as the original. And I really want to stress again that it does work when you're watching the movie. It's just kind of a detriment when I want to listen to this song on its own. And before you say, well, it's a way to have Adina and Kristen in the soundtrack. Yeah, but they're in every song in the original soundtrack, so what does that matter? From a solely musical soundtrack listening standpoint, this alone is enough for me to give it to the original Broadway version by a wide margin. But let's be fair and compare the ending bits of the song as well. They changed the who's the mage who's major parts from being sung by a group to instead being Kristen and Adina solos. And you know what? That's fair enough. They definitely deserve solos that were part of the original song, and they sound fantastic. But damn it, they took out the slide whistle that plays during Our Posteriors in the Broadway version. And you know what? I think I like that one better just because of the slide whistle. This is the Mario Kart 8 version of Donut Plains all over again. After that, the endings are mostly pretty similar without much to comment on. Except for The Wizard Will See You Now. So in the movie, this is the Steven Schwartz cameo. And like, look, he's the guy who wrote the music and lyrics to Wicked. If we're gonna have Adina and Kristen in this song, it honestly makes a lot of sense to put him in this small cameo bit as well. But God bless him, he's just not great at delivering this line.
The wizard will see you now!
I don't know, it's just really flat to me, and it really pales in comparison to the huge enthusiasm the guy in the Broadway version displays in his voice.
The wizard will see you now!
Like, that gets you pumped for the last note of the song. But in the movie version, if you're not getting the visceral excitement of seeing Steven Schwartz on the big screen amidst all of his musical creations, it's not really a good delivery objectively. I don't want to harp on it too much, I know he's not really an actor. But if we're making comparisons free of bias, yeah, the musical version clears for this one line. And the whole thing, really. This is absolutely an easy point to the musical, even though the scene in the movie with all the visuals was one of its best numbers. I'm a little bit more torn on this one than I was expecting, honestly. I actually like A Sentimental Man a lot more than most people, and both versions speak to me for completely different reasons. The Joel Grey one is far better musically. Like, I love Jeff Goldblum, and I think he's decent in this role, like I said earlier. But a trained Broadway singer, he is not. That's fine, it works because of his minimal singing parts. But yeah, just by comparison, Joel Grey sounds a lot better vocally. The thing is though, the Jeff Goldblum version is slower and weirdly sounds a lot more sincere. He seems to genuinely believe what he's saying to her, while Joel Grey sounds a little bit more 2-bit con-man-y. I think it really comes down to whether you prefer the wizard's sentimental or sinister side, since he is a multifaceted character, and you can interpret the song either as manipulation or genuine care. Hell, it's kind of both. So for me, this is a close race due to how wildly different these two interpretations sound. But I think I have to give it to the Broadway version, not just because the singing is nicer, but because of the delivery of one very, very crucial line. I think everyone deserves the chance to fly. See, I think that line should sound more insincere because of how crucial it is for Elphaba to throw it back in the wizard's face during defying gravity. I like the more showboaty way it's delivered by Joel Grey. So as much as I do enjoy the Jeff Goldblum version, this one goes to the Broadway soundtrack. Oh baby, we are all tied up 5-5. So it all comes down to this last number. I couldn't have planned this better if I tried. Time to see which version of Wicked has the superior defying gravity. So, if you don't know Wicked, why the hell are you watching this video? In case you're not familiar with the show too much, this song is a pretty big deal. By far the most iconic and beloved Wicked song to this day. Hell, it's one of the most iconic musical theater songs in general. If there's any song you don't want to get wrong in a production of this musical, it's this one. Now, I just want to start by saying I've seen a few people complain about the way they broke up the different segments of Defying Gravity within the movie because of all the additional plot details they had to add in order to make this serve as a suitable finale to the film. See, I didn't mind those too much, but I can kind of understand the complaint that putting too much space between the segments of this song dulls their impact. After all, the original iconic version of Defying Gravity we all fell in love with has them happen one after the other, allowing a lot of the energy to be maintained throughout. Fortunately though, we don't really have to concern ourselves with all the dialogue breaks in the movie, because we're just comparing the soundtrack versions. So let's get the comparisons started. Okay, first things first, nothing can top the way Kristen delivers Flying Off the Handle. It's just a lot funnier and more iconic than the way Ariana delivers it.
Flying off the handle, flying off the handle.
I also like how bitter and biting Kristen delivers the opening singing bit, though Ariana is no slouch either with the way she emphasizes each syllable of forever. I also think it's hard to top the iconic way Adina sings the next I hope you're happy too bit. Though I appreciate Cynthia orienting herself in the character more and speaking some of those bits, like I hope you're happy and grovel in submission. They both work in their own ways. And in terms of the first time the two of them sing together in the song, honestly, like I said briefly earlier, I just think the blending of Ariana and Cynthia's voices is ridiculous. They sound even better than the already great combo of Kristen and Adina. I like the more innocent and pure way Kristen delivers Just Say You're Sorry, as well as All You've Ever Wanted. Though I think I prefer Cynthia's quiet resolve in the I don't want it, no I can't want it bit. You gotta really build up to the explosive bits of this song. And comparatively, I think Adina emotionally plays her hand a little bit too early with how lively and expressive she delivers I can't want it. Cynthia's version also slows down the something has changed within me, something is not the same part, which I appreciate because it also goes hand in hand with that build-up thing I mentioned. It really feels like the movie version of the song is, how do I put this? Holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity. They know the power of these words and what they're leading to. So I think slowing them down a bit without going too slow is appreciated. Once they sing, it's time to try Defying Gravity, it's honestly hard to say which version I prefer, since they're both unbelievably gorgeous sounding. Cynthia sounds a little richer there, but I think I might slightly prefer the purity and wide-eyed wonder you can hear in Adina's version. I am grasping at straws a little bit though, because Cynthia's version of these bits is really amazing. I think I prefer Kristen's Can't I Make You Understand, You're Having Delusions of Grandeur a little bit. This is completely unrelated, but Delusions of Grandeur is such a cool ass phrase, and I really wish it was in more stuff. I've literally only ever heard it in Wicked, and when 3PO says it to R2 at the end of Empire Strikes Back. If there's more Delusions of Grandeur mentions out there in art, please let me know. Anyway, I love the contempt you can hear in Cynthia's voice when she sings Accepting Limits. That's a great touch. And her version of Till I Try I'll Never Know is a little bit more impactful and exciting. I like her additional flourish on Been Afraid Of, though Adina's more simple take on Well If That's Love is a little bit more impactful to me. Speaking of which, Cynthia Mabie riffs a little bit too close to the sun with Kiss Me Goodbye, I'm Defying Gravity. Because there's no space in between goodbye and I'm, making it sound a little bit unnatural and forced. She should have held space for the lyrics, guys. So yeah, Adina does that part a little better while also adding a shorter and simpler nice flourish of her own. The appeals to Glinda are pretty similar in quality, but then it gets to that duet part, and once again, Ariana and Cynthia's voices together is just heavenly. The Broadway version sounds great, but the movie version sounds transcendent. Holy shit, their version of For Good is gonna be so amazing. Between the two, I hope you're happy now that you're choosing this sections. Kristen sounds a little bit more delicate and pretty, but Ariana expresses a little bit more pain in her voice at the idea of parting with her friends, while also still sounding pretty in her own right. So I think I prefer the movie version of this bit. Though, as much as I love the Ariana and Cynthia blending, I prefer the Broadway version of I Hope You're Happy in the End, because of one difference unrelated to the vocals. And that's how grand the instrumentation is compared to the more subdued movie version. I think the last moment these two share together before the time skip should be grand, and I don't know why the background instrumentals are quieter in the movie version. Oh well, I guess, not a huge deal. Now here comes the big part of the song, as well as the part with the biggest differences. The movie soundtrack adds a little bit of the dialogue and context from the film's scenes. And while I complained about this during Dancing Through Life, I think it's kind of appropriate here because it goes with the background music ramping up to the big moments. It doesn't go on too long, and it's not really a big detriment. In fact, Cynthia's "It's Me" notes only makes the build up to "So If You Care to Find Me" even more enticing, in my opinion. In the Broadway version, it just kind of happens, which is fine because the whole song already built up to it. But I think this extra note in the movie version makes it even more of a home run than it already was. But enough about the build up, let's talk about the big moment itself. So, obviously, Idina's version of this is one of the most iconic moments in all of musical theater. It sounds incredible, it goes ridiculously hard, I absolutely love it. So I really do not want this to come across as a diss, nor do I say this lightly given the history and status of Idina's version. But Cynthia's is better. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it in my mind. The way she extends that "me" note and drives it up, offering a perfect transition into "Look to the Western Sky." It takes an already insane moment vocally and just ups the insanity. Like I've been saying throughout this video, Ariana and Cynthia just perfectly match the foundation that Kristen and Idina set. And in a lot of cases, take it to the next level. Though let's not count Idina out, obviously. Because I still prefer the way she delivers "Everyone Deserves the Chance to Fly." Just like earlier, it sounds a little more wide-eyed and expressive. Especially the way she delivers "Fly." Also, I just noticed this, but Cynthia changes the lyric to "Everyone deserves a chance to fly" instead of "the chance." I was wondering if A Sentimental Man changed it as well, but no, Jeff Goldblum still sings "the chance." So either Cynthia got it wrong and they just left it in the movie, or maybe you can read into it and she's changing the wizard's rules and not confining herself to what he said or something. I don't know, man. I think maybe she just got it wrong and they didn't notice. This is what happens when you don't hold space. I also like Idina's simpler version of "At Least I'm Flying Free" more. Like, Free doesn't need a riff on it. Let the freedom be simple and uncomplicated. It still sounds good in Cynthia's version, obviously, but that's one area I prefer the original. But then, I like the emphasis Cynthia puts on "take a message." I'm telling you, these are so damn close in terms of quality. The whimsy and the faster instrumentals during Idina's version of "Tell Them How I'm Defying Gravity" are a little better and more fitting, with the vocals being on pretty even footing during this part. Special mention to the nice way Cynthia slides down during "Renown." It sounds really cool. And now, for what could be the big make or break change between the two. The added build-up in the movie version to that last bit of the song. Obviously necessary in order to wrap up the characters and plot threads of the movie and set up the second one. But is it a boon or a detriment musically? See, at first I was thinking maybe a bit of a detriment, because the immediate gratification of hearing "And Nobody in All of Oz" in the Broadway version is iconic and phenomenal. It really keeps up that momentum. So is this addition to the movie a momentum killer? Or does it just add even more build-up to make the ending even more spectacular than it already is? I can understand someone feeling either way about this bit. And me personally, I have landed on it being good, actually. The combination of the gorgeous, soaring instrumentals and Cynthia's tender deliveries of "Unlimited" just serve to further hype you up for what you know is coming. I don't think it goes on for too long, and that last "Unlimited" in particular is a really gorgeous and tender addition that embodies her newfound freedom. And it's followed up by that "ah" note, perfectly transitioning into "And Nobody." This part right here is so damn invigorating. As amazing as most of Idina's version is, it really makes her version of "And Nobody in All of Oz" specifically look pedestrian by comparison.
Nobody.
Cynthia's decision to speak it adds so much power to the line, with "And Nobody" in particular dripping with such contempt for the wizard, as she should be feeling. And the way she emphasizes "is" or "was" has so much tremendous weight to it as well. These deliveries just scream defiance, not just of gravity, but of the wizard and his lies. I have not been able to get the way she delivers them out of my head since seeing the movie. It's a meaningful and tremendous change. She adds some nice subtle riffs to Gonna Bring that aren't too showy. And while I slightly prefer Adina's ever so slightly cleaner me note, it's a pretty negligible difference. One other seemingly negligible change that I'd argue honestly serves as a solid point in the movie's favor is the fact that Ariana chimes in with "I hope you're happy" decently quicker than Kristen does. I don't know why, but I really like that. It sells the immediacy of the moment and feels more like she wants to get this sentiment out to Elphaba right away, rather than waiting for her cue to get it out. Ariana also sings a little bit lower than Kristen, which is a nice touch, because it's like she doesn't want to upstage Elphaba in her big moments. Another way less subtle difference is the guards in the movie singing "kill her" instead of just "get her." Like, I don't think I need to explain why that's a good change. Cynthia also goes higher on the second "Bring Me Down," ironically, and that just sounds phenomenal. But of course, the big question here is, who does the damn riff at the end better? Honestly, if you've been paying attention to this part, I think you know what I'm gonna say. Adina's is arguably the most iconic vocalization in Broadway history. But as usual, Cynthia just builds on that foundation and delivers something that sounds even better. If you prefer the original riff, that's more than valid. Hell, you might have a smarter reason for saying it's better than I do, since mine is just Cynthia sounds cooler and more impressive here. But for me personally, I think despite this being an incredibly close race between two titans, with advantages and disadvantages to specific parts of both versions, in the end, I'm gonna have to say that my favorite version of Defying Gravity is shockingly the movie version. This is the one I'm gonna be listening to more often in the years to come. It's just transcendent. Fucking hell, that was 20 minutes. Oh my god. And with that, the score is officially 5 points for the Broadway version and 6 for the movie version. I genuinely was not expecting this. I thought the Broadway version was gonna mostly sweep, but I think it's a testament to just how incredible the cast they got for the movie version is. The choices for the lead roles were genuinely inspired, and they all made for such phenomenal new interpretations of these classic songs. With that said, despite what the scoreboard has to say, I don't know if I would fully say the movie version of this soundtrack is the better overall one. Cause you gotta remember, not all of these songs really should be weighed equally. 2 of those points the movie earned were for Dear Old Shiz and Something Bad. 2 songs that barely leave an impact on anything that I really couldn't care less about. You could argue that the Broadway version gets a larger number of more important wins. Plus, the Broadway version doesn't have any singers who are on the weaker side whatsoever. It's a much more consistent soundtrack overall. Me personally, if I had to choose just one version to listen to forever, I might still have to say the Broadway version, because it flows a lot better in a lot of ways, and includes less unnecessary additions that are exclusive to the movie. So take the scoreboard with a grain of salt. It was just kind of a fun way of visualizing how many individual wins each version got. I think the main takeaway here should be just how insanely good the movie cast and soundtrack really is. Like, this just doesn't happen for musical to movie adaptations. The movie cast usually does not stand toe-to-toe with the original Broadway cast singing-wise. Mostly because a lot of the roles are filled by pointless celebrities who aren't nearly as talented vocally as trained Broadway singers. The Wicked movie kept that to a minimum and made sure the roles that really mattered went to people who actually could match the level that a Broadway actor operates on. I mean, Cynthia literally is a Tony-winning Broadway actress. And I guess Ariana is also a Broadway actress since she was in the original cast of Broadway. I mean, 13. But yeah, overall, I can't stress enough how impressed I am with the movie music-wise. And if you're upset about this upset in the score, you gotta remember, the competition isn't over yet. We'll definitely be returning to this in a year's time once Wicked for Good is out, and seeing once and for all which version is gonna get more wins, once we can compare the Act 2 songs. So, I'll see you then. And if you care to find me, look to the Pikmin planet, because I'm gonna be ranking Pikmin treasures probably all year until Wicked Part 2 comes out. See you then! Good night, Oz.